Sorry, could you repeat that? No, I was chewing. I tried to chew it on my lunch.
Okay, yeah, I think we're good to start.
Oh, great.
And we're recording. Fantastic. Alexi, do you just want to do the regular thing? We'll present whichever slides we've authored.
Okay. Okay, so good day, everybody, and this is our session 3 of Canadian Cyber Defense Challenge. And please pay attention into the bottom right corner, and you can definitely get this presentation going. I've seen a couple of viewers already who are browsing this presentation, so I'll go forward. And again, who never met me, I'm Alexei Vasiluk, and I'm security architect with Great West Life. And basically, I'm one of the architects for CDC events. Jared?
Yeah, you guys know me already. I'm infrastructure services manager with Merlin, and primarily a network nerd with a keen interest in security.
All right, so let's go through today's objectives. And basically, again, we would like, Jared and I would like to stress ethical considerations of the information that we're presenting to you guys and girls. And without further ado, we'll go with introduction to NMAP. And we'll do today NMAP hands-on. So I hope that our ask from a previous presentation was fulfilled in terms of installing NMAP. So I'll quickly jump over ethical consideration. Again, my quickness just associated with the time constraints that we might have during today's session, but for you girls and guys, please pay attention. The NMAP tool and other port scanning techniques can both aid in securing system or compromising them. So pretty much keep in mind that most of the government or organizations treating port scanning activity as potentially malicious. So be very careful what you are doing outside of controlled environments. So we will only use NMAP in ethical and professional manner by scanning only allowed networks and assets. And if you are not sure about scanning, don't do it. That's as simple as that. You're not sure, you don't scan. You won't have problems. So, and we will only use NMAP to test the current security of systems we own or have permissions to scan. So, for example, even within the organization that I'm working to, despite the fact that I have somewhat relation to the information security, I will never jump ahead and start scanning things without letting people know. So let's just talk very briefly about Internet Protocol. Jared, do you want me to do that? Are you okay with it, or?
I'll do it, sure.
Okay.
Just because I'm not sure the degree of familiarity the students have with some of the underlying network technologies, we're going to mention it, but we're going to sort of brush over it really quickly. So the Internet Protocol is, well, what runs the Internet, and it fits into the OSI Layer 3 or network layer. And really, it's the de facto networking standard these days. Each node on the network has an IP address or an IPv6 address, which uniquely identifies it on the network, mostly. And I say mostly because there are things like network address translation that make that line a bit blurry, but for the sake of our discussions, we're going to go with that. Next slide, Alexi. Okay, so TCP, the Transmission Control Protocol, is an OSI layer 4 or transport layer, which is really responsible for controlling the transfer of data. There's some interesting characteristics of it. One, it's meant to be reliable, so TCP will know when packets were lost. And if packets are lost, it'll try and retransmit as best it can. It also guarantees the ordering of packets such that packet 1 should arrive at its destination before packet 2 and vice versa. There's a degree of error checking, so if a packet gets mangled in between, TCP will generally be able to detect that. And the vast majority of internet traffic is carried over TCP. We're going to be talking about port scanning today, so let's just define what a port is. A port is essentially a place where a machine listens for connections from the outside world. Now, there are 2 to the power of 16 ports available, which gives you ports 0 through 65,535. And I updated the slides a little bit here. It's not showing, but so essentially, if you have a web server, for example, convention says that a web server will listen on port 80. That's 80. There are lots of conventions. SSH is on port 22. You'll find all sorts of lists of standard port mappings out there on the internet. So similar to TCP, next slide, Alexi, is the this is important. When two hosts want to talk over TCP, there is what's called a three-way handshake before they can even start exchanging data. So the host on the left side, or host A, sends a packet to the IP address of host B and to a specific port. Let's say that's port 80 if it's a web request. So before data gets sent, host A sends a packet to host B with the SYN, or the synchronized bit, set. Host B, if it gets the packet, and if there's something listening on that port, will send a packet back to host A with the synchronize and the acknowledgement bit set, at which point host A will reply with an acknowledgement or an ACK, at which point data can go back and forth. So that's a three-way handshake. And this is going to come up later when we talk about different port scanning methods. Generally, if a port isn't open on host B, for example, so if we send a SYN packet to port 8888 and that port isn't open, generally host B will not send back a SYN-ACK. It will send back a packet with the reset flag set, and that will tell us that the port there's nothing listening on that port, or that the port is said to be closed. Now that's kind of a generalization. If host B has, for example, a firewall on it and there's nothing listening on that port, it'll just silently drop the packet. So host A ends up wondering, like, I don't know, maybe the packet got lost in the middle, I don't know. But host A, that connection's sort of a bit undetermined. So we'll keep that in the back of our minds going forward. Okay, now the next slide. The user datagram protocol, or UDP, is also an OSI layer 4 transport. So just like TCP, UDP is at the layer 4. There is no three-way handshake. It's an unreliable protocol. There are no acknowledgements, no retransmissions. The reason for that is, or how is that useful? Essentially, you're having upper layer protocols like DNS, for example, will handle retransmissions. Why the heck would an unreliable protocol be useful? Well, one of the reasons, or one of the examples, would be for voice over IP, or VoIP. VoIP is generally over UDP, and a VoIP call essentially will sample your voice several 1,000 times or hundreds of times a second, I guess, and packet up that little bit of voice into a packet and huck it down the wire. So if you consider if one of those packets gets lost, it's a tiny slice of your voice. Who cares? In applications like voice, late is as good as lost, right? You'd never want to retransmit a hunk of voice because what do you pause the call? So UDP is super handy for that sort of thing. UDP, similar to TCP, has the concept of ports. Again, there are 2 to the power of 16 or 65,000, or 0 to 65535, and it's sort of the same thing. So a UDP port and a TCP port are different entirely, right? So you can have something listening on UDP port 80 and TCP port 80 and have that be a different application. Okay, that's a lot of theory. So let's start talking about NMAP. And I just want to circle back before Alexi, I'll let you carry on. We're going to be talking about port scanning, and the concept is this: we want to have a tool that we can essentially interrogate a host on the network and see which ports are open without knowing that. So why would that be useful? Well, from a network administrator's point of view, I want to know what's being exposed to the world. If I have a web server open on port 80 that's flapping in the wind out on the internet, I want to know that. So NMAP is a tool that we can use as industry professionals to interrogate our own hosts. The flip side of that, of course, is that network mapping or port scans are also used in, or could be used in a malicious way. So if I want to break into Oleksi's web server, first thing I'm going to do is bust out Nmap and see what's listening. So do you realize that these types of tools can be used for all sorts of purposes? Of course, we're using these tools for the purposes of good and with the intention of securing our systems. Okay, Oleksi, do you want to talk about Nmap a bit?
Of course. Basically, NMAP is a tool, as Jared says, that helps us to do multiple things within the TCP and UDP protocols. And we are grateful for further to develop it for us. So who never visited the website that distributes NMAP, it would be nmap.org. And basically, Jared already touched bases on what NMAP does for us. But just to reiterate it quickly, NMAP could also help us with discovering hosts on the network in general. By saying that, NMAP has multiple options, and one of the options will actually does a discovery scan for us. It won't be concerned about the ports or the whole 65,000. It might just use, for example, ICMP protocol in order to discover it, or most of you knows it by the name of ping. And also there's a couple other techniques that can be used in the discovery. So that's a very good purpose for Nmap, or not purpose, but actually, sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts around. So basically, just let's start with a quick example. You're going to some unknown network, and of course you have your authorization to do your discovery activities within the network, and you have no idea what you're looking into. So Nmap can help you out to build a map, and by map I mean you will be able to discover IP addresses that responds to ping. Sometimes ping will be blocked by different security controls, so it won't be the most reliable way of doing it, but at least it will give a very general idea and a good idea how the network is structured and what is available on the network. So the second purpose and the main purpose, of course, of Nmap is port scanning. It can scan range of ports through the range of addresses and return some useful information. As it was previously described, common port for HTTP server or web server will be a TCP/80. In some cases, web servers can be listening on different ports, and actually Nmap won't rely on the common notion that 80 is HTTP port. Nmap takes it a little bit farther and actually tries to utilize the service that is listening on the open port and to figure out what it is. In addition, Nmap has an ability to use different scripts, and scripts can help you to detect, for example, operating systems that the host of interest is running. There is also quite a big variety of the scripts, and for example, if some of you might hear about, I don't know, what would be the latest, greatest vulnerability that was running through multiple news channels. So, for example, shell shock. There will be a script in Nmap engine that actually will help you to discover hosts that are susceptible to this vulnerability. And of course, there is lots and lots of options that Nmap can be used with. So let's jump to some more practical information about Nmap. So, for example, if you just want to scan some particularly approved host for some very general information, you can run Nmap without any keys, I guess, and the scenario will be super simple. You just run Nmap and your target host. You can also specify a range. By range, I mean you can pretty easily say, like, I want to scan subnet 10.0.0.1, or actually host 10.0.0.1 through 255. So pretty much this scan will initiate the scan of all 254 hosts that are available on the subnet. And there is some network magic behind why I said 254, but curious one can ask the question later. So also you can use serial notation, and whomever is familiar with network, specifically Cisco gurus, will prefer to use, not Cisco, but just network gurus in general, will prefer to use serial notation /24, which literally means the same. If one wants more information, we pretty much just specify -v flag, and it stands for verbose. Service scans, and it's pretty much our service discovery or version scan. NMAP has a very easy to memorize structure of the parameters, and -s stands for scan types. So when we specify -sv, that pretty much tells us that initiate scan with version scanning in it. So right now we are initiating NMAP scan with the version scanning for 10.0.0.1, and some useful information can be returned. As I was mentioning that one can use NMAP as the tool to discover assets within the network, you can run, again, NMAP with the P option, and P option actually stands for probe only. For whomever, I found it easier to memorize not by the word probe, but by the word ping. It's not related, but it actually what it does by default. So when I'm running nmap -sp, capital P, and please don't forget that it's case sensitive, so if it's capital, it should be capital. And pretty much that will help me to discover all assets within the 10.0.0 subnet. So here's a simple example of TCP Connect scan, and that is right now it's very important to recall a few slides before. So why we were talking about IP, then we're talking about TCP and UDP. That's the type of scans that are actually executed. So TCP Connect scan will be considered somewhat long, because actually it will do a full handshake. So as you remember, that will be SYN, then SYN-ACK, and then ACK. So that's what NMAP will do. This is a relatively reliable scan because it actually will go through the full handshake. And example here, it's our scan report, one of Merlin assets, and it was authorized by Jared. So we've done it due diligently. So as you can see, there is a couple ports opened, and right now we can see very common ports associated with the common services. In most of the production environments, it will be true. So port 21 is FTP control channel, 22 is our SSH, and 80 and 443 are associated with the web services. One is provided by ClearText, and another provides the transport layer security. So let's continue with our endeavors. So example, Connect scan and version scan. So basically, again, we're running, as you can see, -s, and this is our scan type. T is a TCP scan, and -a. What -n means? It's all. Just do all, and utilize all non-harmful scripts that are available in the scripting NMAP engine. So again, we're doing scanning, and as you might notice, it's the same IP address, but now look into our output. It's quite verbose. So again, NMAP has discovered TCP21 port is open, and it actually discovered that it's FTP. As we may remember, it was the same in the previous slide, but look into it right now. It actually gives you a version of FTP that it's running, and it's FTP daemon, which is one of one of the flavors of FTP server. And if you see next portion of the output, it actually puts an interesting statement. FTP anonymous FTP login allowed, FTP code 230. So actually that was done by the scripting engine, and some FTP servers from some historical perspectives have an anonymous login allowed. And by anonymous login, what it actually means that one can go and anonymously upload or download files. The next output line gives us even more information. So 22 TCP is open and it's SSH server. It actually gives us what type of SSH server it is, and it's OpenSSH 661, which actually, and it runs protocol 2.0, and sometimes it's very important, depends on what is the purpose of your scan and what you're trying to accomplish, but that's a lot of information for us to understand. Actually, the details above feed back into the operating system detection. So right now, NMAP gets that it's Linux running on kernel 2632, and there is quite a few details to follow. So by default, NMAP only scans the most common 1,000 ports. If we want to specify all ports, we are actually doing -P065535. There is actually a shortcut for that as well. If you do -P-, it does exactly the same. And basically, how we determine how many ports, it's pretty much integer math within the computer. So it's a 2 to the power of 16 will be equal to 65535, and it would be same for TCP and UDP ports. So as Jared already explained, TCP has some rules of engagement between two systems, and that's why we can reliably determine and deliver packets, of course, and reliably determine if TCP is working properly or not, if it's accepting connections. So why do UDP scans take us so long as compared to TCP scans? And trust us, it does take quite a while. So the problem with it, that actually what NMAP tries to do, it tries to wait for response from UDP longer than from TCP, because UDP, it's a fire and forget idea, and it might be just delaying the transport. In the TCP, on the other hand, you just fire something and server will return something back to you. Of course, nasty firewalls can just drop the packet and never let you know, but that would be also a good indication. If there is no response within the very limited amount of time, we can pretty much reliably determine the port is closed. And there is example, a closed TCP gets you back a reset or silence in some cases, but UDP will give you always silence. So NMAP timing, and that's very important. T-flag set the speed of NMAP. Again, by the speed of NMAP, how fast you can scan something. For example, if you are in local network and you are authorized to do scan and the network has a big bandwidth, probably you are mostly result oriented, so you want your data right away. So if somebody goes with -T5, it would be applicable for your local network. You have your rights to do that, so it does it very quickly for you. It might introduce some hurdles for the systems on the network, because some systems, specifically legacy one, might be overwhelmed with the amount of data and might cause some problems. So production servers might be a bad idea if you make them or make NMAP scan them with option 5. So we have aggressive. By default, NMAP does it always in normal mode, so if you are not specifying -T3, it would be assumed. We have polite, sneaky, and paranoid. Again, like if, for example, some kind of malicious actor tries to scan your system, probably they will go with sneaky or paranoid. And basically, why it is done is just to avoid detection of your security controls that somebody is scanning. And it would be super painfully slow scan, but for example, if -T0, but it will guarantee some safeguards to potential perpetrator. So the NMAP, there is different variants of NMAP interfaces. Most of the time, Jared and I'm pretty sure we are using command line interface, but there is GUI interface as well. It looks somewhat okay. Honestly, you still provide the command with all the parameters that you will do in the regular command line interface, but it has nice GUI, and actually it parses data for you and fills different tabs. It's just a different manner of data representation. So whomever feels intimidated with command line interfaces, please feel free to use GUI. It's a good starting point. Also, a GUI interface can help us build asset map, and basically that's your discovery scan that represents it, and it shows what the relations or connections between the assets are. So without further ado, let's jump into our hands-on. So first of all, we will visit scanme.nmap.org, and this site was set up by NMAP. We will read through the whatever they're suggesting us not to do with it, and if somebody needs a quick reference to the NMAP key options, let's put it this way, SANS has provided a great cheat sheet for us. And if somebody wants to obtain it, feel free to scan this QR code or go to this link. So I'll give you 30 seconds to get it, or maybe less. And then we will do our hands-on and we'll see how it works. And please feel free to follow. 30 seconds in online presentation seems to be a long time for silence, but I'll be patient.
Alexei, are you going to fire up NMAP?
Yeah, I will.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so let me just go to the browser mode again, and okay, let me type. It might be faster with that. So let's go to scanme.nmap.org and see what pretty much further tells us. So as you may see, we know for sure that this machine was set up to learn about NMAP and also to test and make sure that their NMAP installation works. So you are authorized to scan this machine with NMAP or other port scanners. So exactly, that was a very important statement. So somebody authorizes us to scan it with NMAP. So I'll just fire my terminal. And is font too small? Yes, no, bigger? Okay, I need some feedback. Okay. So we were talking about NMAP discovery, so let's just discover it. So again, -S, what is the scan type, and P is probe, or it's easier for me to remember it as a ping. So let's go to scanme.nmap.org. Okay, so let's see what is going on. So I fired my scan, and as you may see that NMAP scan report for scanme.nmap.org, and it actually resolved the DNS entry to IP address.
Alexei,
yep.
sorry to interrupt, but some of the people are saying that they can hardly see it. So could you increase the font size?
What was my eventual ask? Is it a bit better?
Looks good to me.
Okay. So let's proceed then further. Okay, so we've done our initial discovery scan. So that's all interesting. So let's do our just TCP scan, and we'll see what it returns to us. So it might take some time because we're still going through the 1,000 ports. What I'll do for the next scan, it was pretty quick. So basically, okay, so right now we're looking into just a port scan, and you might see it before. So it says that SSH is open, HTTP is open, and ping echo is open, and something called elite. Okay, so honestly, I have no idea what elite is. So let's try to do our all scan, and we'll see what actually it will try, NMAP will try to detect services and versions. So it will take a bit of a time. So meanwhile, are there any technical difficulties of doing the same things? Okay, I assume that there are not. So let's just dive into this and take a look what is our output is. So okay, we get again like our resolution of domain name to IP address. We know that the host is up. So other addresses for scanme and nmap.org. Okay, and we can see this this quite lengthy colon separated address. What it might be. Okay, that's IPv6 representation for the same site, so it's IPv6 address. If some of you didn't see IPv6 before, yeah, enjoy. That's how the addresses are looking like. So let's just jump farther. So not shown, 996 ports are closed. Okay, that's fair. Not all ports are used if services are not associated with them. So now, if you just compare it with whatever we see previously, it just says 22 TCP open SSH. Okay, but right now we can see quite a few more details. So first of all, it says that it's open SSH, and this is version 661 and patch 1. And it also says that it's actually Ubuntu. And we also see that SSH running protocol 2.0. So from perspective of security person, what I'm actually seeing here. First of all, I see a violation that banners are not sanitized properly. It just returns too much information for me. Second of all, I already know my target system without even OS detection. It says it's Ubuntu. Still don't know what the version of operating system it is, but we will figure it out a little bit later. So next, what I see actually that associated host keys with SSH. Again, from most of you, it doesn't make a lot of sense right now, but in the future, when you have more information, you will right away say, oh, okay, so we're using 1024 lengths of DSA key, and it's actually DSA stands for a digital signing algorithm. So right away, I know that there might be a problem with associated cipher suites with this algorithm. And what is the problem with associated cipher suite? Actually, potentially you might downgrade this SSH connection to a certain level that decryption of the stream will be quite easy. Why I want to do that? For example, I know that the system administrator will access this host to manage it, and then I can figure out how to trick system administrator, potentially with an active attack, to provide his credentials over not very secure line, and my goal is to pretty much get these credentials out. So next one is 2048-bit key, and it's RSA key. Again, it's I don't remember the last name of actually the last names of group of people who are responsible for RSA algorithm, but SA stands for security signing algorithm. But again, I know that it's pretty strong. Again, underlying cipher suite might yield some results for us to work with. What it stands EC, it's actually elliptical curve cryptography, another flavor. So key is relatively small, which is quite strange for elliptic curve. So again, like potentially, like just by analyzing this output, I already can find out a couple ways to secure my system. Or in case of opposite side, I can find a couple ways of circumventing security of the system. So next, we can see that port 80 is open, and there is Apache HTTPD server running version 2.4.7. Again, we know for sure right now that it's Ubuntu. because another service returns us the operating system description. Again, the problem for security perspective, we are exposing our Apache server version, and the problem with it, so for example, if one of you right now go to the Google or whatever your favorite search engine and type Apache HTTPD 247 vulnerabilities, you might find some. So again, scripting engine, here we go, has ran for the OpenPort 2, so it actually read what the header returned from the server, and again, it confirmed that it's Apache 247, and we actually read the title. It's the same title that we've seen here. Go ahead and scan me. So pretty much, if we know that we're looking for particular vulnerability within the web page, we can also use NMAP scripting engine to actually scan for this particular vulnerability. Okay, so we also find some more information that nping echo, and for this mysterious elite server, it was just a TCP wrapper to confuse us. So, okay, right now let's just scan the same thing, but with the version detection. So, and we'll see if it accurately detects actually operating system. We already know, we have a good clue that it's Ubuntu, but let's just poke a bit more and see what version of Ubuntu it is. So again, it returns the same output because I guess -a consists of the same output. So, and service info is OS Linux and CP Linux kernel. So again, that's pretty good because we didn't see anything extraordinary, but okay, I've screwed up the option a bit, so -O is also detection, sorry, and let's actually do quite interesting thing. This might take long, but we'll go through 65,000 ports just out of curiosity and see what happens. Okay, and as you may see right away, I had a problem. It says that operating system detection required root privileges. So I'll do provide root privileges. And here's our scan launched. Some might ask, why do you need root privileges for that? Because something that NMAP utilizing in order to discover information on the network will need to access some portion of operating system that regular user shouldn't touch. Specifically, when you start manipulating, for example, packet sequencing numbers or times, that will actually require this. So right now, with the OS detection, I'm going up. So we still see mostly the same information, but the part is running, just guessing. That's pretty much the part that tells you a lot of information about operating system. As you can see, the detection is only 91%, so it says that it's potential Linux 3 or 4 or 2.6, and basically it may vary that it might be Ubuntu starting at 11th iteration or 11th version going up to 14th version, so we're not sure. And again, from a security perspective, it gives me a good idea that actually they protected, they've done due diligence on their network side, and they actually making it hard to detect. But if we go down to the aggressive guessing, it narrows it down for us, and it says that it's Linux 3.8. So right now we can go back to the Ubuntu repository and pretty much see what Ubuntu version uses Linux kernel version 3.8, and then basically we will have a very good idea, again, what next we should look to. So, okay, right now you see also I expanded with the trace route, and I'm using my cell phone, so actually I'm terminated within my IP address, and it just gives me trace route information, how I get to the scanme.nmap.org. 3 dots, it's pretty much routers doesn't want me to know what it is, so that's when you see the dots. So this is a quick crash course on the NMAP, and we have 3 minutes left or so. I guess that's a very good time for, do you have any questions? Here's some visualization for the questions.
I guess just one additional thing, well, I guess we mentioned it, but when you're starting to learn a tool like NMAP, there are so many options to it that it's absolutely staggering, but keep it basic. Again, you can just type NMAP and then the IP or host name, and you'll get some interesting stuff. One of the things about ZenMap is if you use that instead of the regular command line utility, ZenMap tries to, like Alexi said, it'll try and make a pretty map for you. It'll sort of by default do a lot of that extra detection over and above just port scanning. So it tends to enable a lot of those flags. But if you want to mess around with ZenMap and then turn some of the knobs and widgets, like Alexi pointed out, it'll actually show you what the equivalent command line is that you can run outside of the GUI tool. So that can be really a handy way to familiarize yourself with the NMAP on the command line.
Okay, so are there any questions? I'm pretty sure that there should be something. I might be wrong. Okay, so just for the next session, we will need... Yes, Greg?
No, go ahead.
Okay, for the next session, we will need Wireshark. You want to have it installed, and we will most certainly provide some PCAPs for you to look into. And also, if some of you can install netcat, so it's like net and cat. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jared and Alexi. I've recorded this, so I'll be uploading it for other schools to watch as well.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, bye.